Hi, this is our lesson 139. In this class I will show you the Modo Condicional Perfecto in Spanish. In the previous class I showed you Modo Condicional Simple, or the simple conditional tense. This one, Condicional Perfecto or Condicional Compuesto, or perfect or compound, is another conditional tense, but this time you will see that we use an auxiliary verb, okay? In Spanish conjugations, whenever you see the word perfecto in the name of the tense, that means that there is an auxiliary verb involved. But before we step into our topic, let's briefly see all the different Spanish tenses that we will be seeing and learning in due time, okay? So this list here, this first page, these are the verbs, the tenses of the indicativo, and here we have the tenses of the subjuntivo, okay? All these form a group of 22 PowerPoint video lessons that I will be introducing with in order to show you and to teach you all the conjugations in Spanish for all the regular verbs, right? We'll be classifying them. We will be dividing them into the three groups of Spanish verbs, right? And we will begin with the verbs that end in the letters AR. Okay, remember that Spanish verbs are classified into three groups: the verbs that end in ar, the verbs that end in er, and the verbs that end in ir. Okay, the first group, the ones that end in AR, is the biggest of the groups, and it's also the one that has less irregular verbs, right? So let's begin with this one, and we'll choose the verb hablar as an example of a regular verb of this group. Hablar means to speak. So an example using the modo condicional perfecto is yo habría hablado. I would have spoken, right? This is what we call the modo condicional perfecto. I would have spoken is modo condicional perfecto. Yo habría hablado. Here we have a slightly more complex sentence where you can see the use of this conditional tense. Si me hubiera sentido mejor, habría hablado más. Si me hubiera sentido mejor, habría hablado más. If I had felt better, I would have spoken more, right? So I would have spoken more is modo condicional perfecto. Habría hablado más, right? So here you can see that we use modo condicional perfecto when we are referring to something that would have happened if certain hypothetical situation came true, okay? So let's begin with the first subject pronoun, with the pronoun I or yo. Yo habría hablado. Tú habrías hablado. Él habría hablado. O ella o usted habría hablado. Nosotros habríamos hablado. Vosotros habríais hablado, for you would have spoken. Ustedes habrían hablado, also you would have spoken. Ellos habrían hablado, they would have spoken. So, see how vosotros and ustedes mean the same thing. They are synonyms. They both mean you plural. But vosotros is the pronoun that is used in Spain, and ustedes is the pronoun that is used in Latin America. And although they mean the same thing, you can see that the conjugation is different. Vosotros habríais hablado and ustedes habrían hablado. Actually, ustedes conjugates exactly the same as the pronoun ellos or they, right? And take a look at the subject pronoun usted. Usted is the formal you, right? Tú would be the informal you, and usted is the formal you. In Spanish, we said that Spanish is a formal language, and we use usted whenever we address somebody that is much older than us, or somebody with certain status that requires that we keep a respectful distance, right? Or also when we are talking to somebody we are unrelated to or unacquainted with, and then we do not know that person, so we address that person as usted, okay? For example, if we are talking to somebody in the street or to a customer, or we go shopping, there in Spanish we better use the pronoun usted instead of you, instead of tú, right? So you can see that the root of the verb is in blue and the ending is in red, right? So if you want to conjugate any verb, you just replace the root of the verb with whatever verb you want to conjugate, and you add the ending that is in red. And here in this case, since we are using an auxiliary verb, you can see that only the auxiliary verb changes the conjugation, right? And here the auxiliary verb that we use is the verb haber. So let's now pass to the second group of Spanish verbs. These are the verbs that end in er or er. We will take the verb comer or to eat as an example to conjugate, okay? Example, yo habría comido. I would have eaten. Si me hubiera sentido mejor, habría comido más. If I had felt better, I would have eaten more. Si me hubiera sentido mejor, if I had felt better, habría comido más. I would have eaten more. Here we have an example of Modo Condicional Perfecto using the verb comer or to eat. Yo habría comido. I would have eaten. Tú habrías comido. You would have eaten. Él habría comido. He would have eaten. Nosotros habríamos comido. We would have eaten. Vosotros habríais comido. You would have eaten. Ustedes habrían hablado. Ustedes habrían comido. You would have eaten. So here we should have used the verb comido, the verb comer, instead of the verb hablar, okay? And our last example is ellos habrían comido, or they would have eaten, okay? So this is the conjugation of the verb comer in the Modo Condicional Perfecto. So now let's see the last group of verbs, the verbs that end in ir, and this is the smallest of the three groups. And it's also the group that has more irregular verbs. But let's practice with a regular verb, that is the verb vivir, or to live. Example, yo habría vivido, or I would have lived. I sometimes say yo or yo, right? Most of the Spanish-speaking countries say yo. Since I come from Uruguay, we say yo. but that doesn't mind. You can say yo or yo.